welcome to our Diamonds in the Rough webinar series. This evening's webinar will be about college prep and how to prepare for college. We also would like to thank our sponsors for this evening's event, the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and the DITR Foundation. And we thank you for that. Sorry about that. Welcome to the Diamonds in the Rough webinar series, brought to you this evening by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and the Kappa Foundation. This evening's webinar, we'll be talking about college prep, and we have Klein Smith who will give us his take on that. Brother Smith, the phone is yours.
I get it. Hi, good evening. Good evening. This is Dr. Klein Smith. Thank you all for joining the webinar, and I really appreciate your time this evening. I'm going to talk to you about how to prepare for college and what do you need to do as a sophomore and a junior, and even as a freshman, but more so as a sophomore and a junior going into your senior year. And for those who are going to be seniors, what do you need to do as well? I'll give you a little background. I have multiple degrees. I went to Xavier University undergraduate. I studied computer science and mathematics. I left there and I master's. Do I work in corporate America? I've gone through 4 different universities. I've been working with kids over 20 years to get them into universities, and I also teach at SMU and UTD. So I teach at 2 universities as well, helping them, get through the curriculum. So it kind of helps me to look at what needs to be done before in order to get to university. And a couple of things I bring out, which most of you know, but we're gonna put a little twist on it, is one, you have to have the academics and the grades. That's obviously common sense. That's easy. You must have, the academics, the grades. You do not need to be a straight A student. You can be a B student and you get some of the top universities, and you can even be a C student and get in some different universities. So the grades are important. It kind of sets the bar on where and what universities you can attend, and what kind of financial scholarship money you can actually get. The second piece of this puzzle are your test scores. And so what are you doing on your ACT? What are you doing on your SAT? What are you doing on your PSAT? And how do those scores help you, especially from a PSAT? People don't take those as serious as they should, but that's your first gateway when the universities start recruiting you. And then your SAT and your ACT. And most universities and most high schools and most areas have prep courses and getting you ready to take those. Take advantage of every single one you can. There are a lot of free ones from Kaplan online. Your school has some that are very low price. So take advantage of any prep course you can to get through that. If you're working with the Kappa Leagues, the Kappa Foundation, there are many options there to help you with the ACT and the SAT as well. So those scores become your second part. Now that third part is your community service and that community activity. What do you do for your community? So it's good that you're a good student, you're athletic, you're academically gifted, you have solid test scores, but we're gonna have a lot of people like that. What separates us from is what do you do for your community? How much volunteer work do you do? How much do you mentor? How often do you help people? What do you sacrifice? And this can also be a work in a job, having a job and doing something else besides studying the entire time. That's very important to have that community service, that push that helps people. And if you're working to help your family or to help cover bills or whatever that is, you want to do something else. If you're an athlete, that actually counts, because from an athletic standpoint, you're making another commitment to do something consistently at a high level. And then that starts to pay off when you start talking about how good your grades are, how good your scores are, and oh, by the way, I'm a participant, and that makes a difference as well. And then I call it the byproduct, the you want to address, and why are you going to college? So let me say that again. I can say I want to major in law. I want to say I can major in being a doctor. I want to go and I want to like to be a computer engineer. You can say all those things. But what we look for is, why do you want to do that? What are the problems you're trying to solve? As a economist, as a forensic scientist, what are the problems you're wanting to solve in this community, in this society? And that's the one that, to me, separates people. Because if I want to come out and I say, hey, you know what? I want to solve people who, right, cleanly as everyone else, they have some challenges. And now I decide I want to solve multiple ways to solve them. Let's think about it. So that is a learning disability is classified. You different the words, things are jumbled up a little bit. It's not as clear, and that causes some challenges when you're reading, when you're writing, and when you're learning. So we can fix that a multitude of ways. Let's think about it. One, you can become a doctor, and you can actually treat people who have it and help them through it, help them think about how to, train the mind to think, etc. That seems straightforward. Well, guess what? You could also treat this as a research chemist, where you can look at the chemical compounds of the mind, of the brain, of what the body pushes out. And as a chemist, you could actually influence potentially some of the dyslexia functionality. Okay, that's not bad. Well, you know what? Guess what? You could also be a lawyer. And as a lawyer, you can actually run for Congress, and you don't have to be a lawyer to run for Congress. So let's say you want to be a political activist, not a lawyer quite yet. Political activist, and you want to do public policy. Well, now you can run and run for public office, and you can actually make rules and laws that actually benefit our. So now, as a politician or as an official making policy, make policies to ensure that people get additional support, additional help, and things they need who have dyslexia. You can look at this from a botanist, someone who deals with plants and deals with the environment, and that right there could help treat dyslexia. So what I want to have from here is, you're going to need a multitude of majors to solve any type of problem. Of course, you're going to need somebody with computer science or mathematical skills who can actually look at all the different combinations and formulas and run statistics and data and come back and say, hey, here's the way we should look at this. So there's a multitude of disciplines that can solve pretty much every problem. So when you're talking and you're thinking about going to university, think about, what problem do you want to solve? You start to have these conversations, you separate yourself from the rest of that group, because most questions are, what do you want to major in? That's not a bad thing. If you know exactly what you want to do, then yes, be that person, be that major. And once you get that major, then lock in, why do you want to major? So it still comes back to, why do you want to major in this? And it could be as simple as, I really like computers. I really like to operate on people. I want to save people. I really would like to make sure that I want to be a lawyer. I can make sure things are fair. I would like to be an entrepreneur because I want to own, 400 different X, Y, and Z companies. I why. That's the first introduction on kind of your thought processes, the grades, your scores, your community activity work, and then you look at, what problem do you want to solve in this community. Now, how do we get there? What do we need to do as a junior and a sophomore, or senior and a junior now, as you're going to be finishing school in the next couple of weeks? First thing you need to do is you need to get recommendation letters. Get recommendation letters as a junior. If you're a senior going into the summer, go to your teachers this week and next week, or definitely over the summer, and get 3 or 4 recommendation letters, 4 recommendation letters. Now, why do you do that? Because when it's time for everyone to apply for college, Everyone's going to go to the same teachers to try to get recommendation letters. And there's a lot more students than there are teachers. So I recommend and get your recommendation letters now. Get them, have the teachers to get them ready, get them in the format you need, have them to give you a couple of hard copies, sign that back in an envelope, have them to give you some soft copies you can email out. And the reason you do that is you're going to start applying for scholarships. You're going to start applying for different universities, different positions. And first thing they're going to ask you is for a recommendation letter. You have it now, and you send it in, you're done. And that makes a big difference on how fast you get evaluated, how fast you get into the pool. And once you get into the pool and get evaluated and get your things in on time, you're ready. So that's one, get ready for college. Get recommendation letters early. Number two, write essays. Write one essay. Why do I want to go to college? That's an important essay. That's going to be pretty much on form. Essay now. Get your teacher, parents, your mentors to review that essay. Make sure that it's online, make sure it's good, and have sex. That's the first college. The second, can you bring to the college? Guess what? That goes right back to what you've done outside of academics. So you're going to bring the academic knowledge to activities. Third essay I recommend writing is tell the story about who you are. Now, what does that mean? Who am I? Yes, that's exactly. Why do I do it? How do I do it? Who am I? And how do I accomplish what to accomplish? But talk about you. Almost you're going to talk about yourself in the third person. I am X, Y, and Z. I do A, B, and C. I like this. This is who I am. I like to sit and read. I like to, think things in a holistic way. I work with my little brother. I work with my little sister. I work with my bigger brother. I like to, whatever that is, you got to tell them when you finish writing that third essay, you look at that pretty darn good person. And that's what you're looking for in that third essay. So the first one is, I want to go to college. The second one is, what value do I bring to the college? And the third one is, who am I? Tell your story. So you get your essays, you get your, recommendation letter, thank you. And then you get your essays. So you have the two pieces you need to start applying for college. Now, I'm going to pause there for a second, Brother Jackson, and see if there's any questions before I go to the next part of the presentation. So if you have questions, please send them over to the webinar. Brother Jackson will ask those questions to me, and I will answer them. I want you to narrow it down to 25 colleges first. And in that 25 colleges, I want you to pick 10 colleges that you know, 15 colleges that you know you can get into based on your academic scores, based on your community work, based on your grades. So that's the easy part. Pick those first 15 colleges. Then let's pick 5 colleges that are going to be stretch schools. And you've heard stretch schools. That means you're just below, or you're below what the minimum qualifications are, but you're actually still in the running. You're still in the conversation. So pick the stretch schools. That's 5. And then pick 5 schools that you know you can get in if you just blink your eyes, because you're much higher qualified, or you're bringing a lot more to this school than the school is potentially going to give you. Now think about what I just said. So that means that there are schools out there for everyone, and everyone is not the same. But from a quality and a tier standpoint, the schools are set up to where there are top tier schools, there are mid tier schools, and there are low tier schools. And that's okay, because we have students who meet those criteria. Once you get to 25 schools, I want you to now look at that list of 25, understand what are you looking for in a school, and try to narrow it down, not the schools yet, but narrow down your prioritization. Am I looking for a big school, a small school? Am I looking for a school in the north, the south, the east, the west? Now that I know what problem I'm trying to solve, and what major, or how do I want to solve that problem, who has the best chance to get me there? Who else at the school is working on this type of problem? What are the professors researching? Is it something that I can actually, kind of get into and take advantage of? So you're going to go through that kind of research with the schools, and you're going to get that list down to 12 schools. Those 12 schools are going to be the schools you apply to. Now, if you're fortunate and hey, I really want to go to school X, Y, or Z, and I really want to go to only one of these 3 schools, given that it's expensive, or proximity, or your parents went there, or you just really have always wanted to go to that school and they meet your complete criteria, that's okay. But still have 3 schools. Don't ever have just one. But try to get it to 12 schools. Once you get it to 12 schools, find the schools that are within an hour from where you are, or even 2, that you can drive to and visit over the next 3 to 6 months. And you don't have to set up a formal visit. It's not bad to do a formal visit, but get a feel for some of the schools. Do a lot of the virtual tours. We did the Xavier University virtual tour a couple of weeks ago. Do the virtual tours. That's very important. And once you do the virtual tours and you go to visit the schools, you get a feel for the campus, you get a feel for the administration, you get a feel for how this all works. And in that aspect, you can start to say, now I can apply to these schools. Hopefully by this time your parents are heavily engaged, or one of your Kappa mentors is engaged, or your school counselors are engaged, and this is where we start thinking and looking at the statistics for getting financial aid, getting scholarships, and getting all the things that we need in order to actually attend school and get it paid for. I believe in going to school for free, and that means we got to find the right school with the right choices to actually make it successful. So that's the second part of that. Let me kind of recap that again. It really comes down to starting off finding 25 schools, 10 schools that are aligned with your level of your academics and your prowess, 5 schools that are aligned with, I hate to say below, but lower tier than where you are, and then 5 schools who are above where you are. And then that's going to actually help you to find the 25 and then narrow that down to 12. And then once you get those 12, you really start taking a virtual tour of those schools, getting to know the schools, understanding professors, understanding what the school is actually bringing to you. Does it fit to the problem you're trying to solve? Does it have the type of major you're looking for? Who's already studying and researching in this field, and how does that all work? So that's very, very important as well. All right, I'm going to pause there before I wrap it up and see if there's additional questions or any questions. We do need to have some questions. So I'm going to see if anybody has any questions, Brother Jackson.
I do not see any questions. But as far as
I also recommend, especially for the SAT and the ACT, taking it early. If you can take a practice one where you don't have to pay for it, I like to take that early to see what my score is. And then based on my score, I know what sections and what I need to really study and hammer and learn more of, so that I'm spending more time on those sections than I am on the other sections. So that's important as well.
so we have some questions come in. What colleges is it good to apply for?
What colleges are good to apply for? So whoever asked that question, I love you to death, but I don't know if you heard some of the things I said. So that's going to depend on what problem you're trying to solve, why you're trying to solve it, what major you want to go into while you're solving it, and then that will tell you the university that fits your particular makeup, I call it, or that is a good fit for you. So there are over 22,000 colleges that you can apply for. So it's really more of what are you looking for and who offers it. And then look at proximity. You want to be cold, you want to be hot, you want to be close to home, away from home, etc. So that's not that's a load question based on everything you're looking for.
We talked about the PSAT, the SAT, and the ACT. So this question is it best to take the PSAT in middle or high school?
Okay, say that one more time.
So is it best to take the PSAT in middle school or high school?
Actually, you know what? If you can take it in middle school, take it in middle school. Yeah, so the best is to take it as early as possible, because the earlier you take it, you know the score now, and you know once you know your score, you know what you need to study for the official one. Now the official one is 11th grade. That's important. Now what that means is when you take the PSAT in 11th grade, you go into this pool of National Honor Society, National Merit winners, and you actually qualify for, in some cases, full, complete scholarships down to $3,000 or $4,000 worth of scholarships. So taking it early helps you understand what your shortening points are, and then also it gives you time to prepare for those. So I do recommend taking it in middle school if you can, and then taking it again in high school. I know most places force you to take it, not force you, but they recommend and they give it the offer in 10th grade. And then in 10th grade, you take it to get ready for it in 11th grade. And 11th grade is when it counts. And when I say counts, you go into the pool to see if you can make some, you get the right qualifications. I'm sorry, not qualify, but you qualify for the National Merit Scholarships.
So when you were applying to go to all these lovely schools that you went to, What was your process?
So this is why I started this. My process was actually a little different. I knew I wanted to major in computer science. I knew I wanted to be a programmer. And in doing that, what that allowed me to do was find the school that I really wanted to go to in computer science, but I didn't have the luxury of a Naviance system that actually could take me through all that knowledge. So I had to rely on people telling me about school and telling me about what they thought about each school and how it actually worked. I got to go chance to visit 4 or 5 different schools. So that was my undergrad. Now, once I finished undergrad, I worked for IBM. And at IBM, depending on where you were, they recommended the schools for you. So I actually started off going to Duke, and then I transferred over to Georgia Tech, and then I transferred over to George Washington, where I actually completed my degree. So my thought process was different in the beginning because I didn't have the tools, which is exactly why I opened up and I do this kind of work with different kids, really helping them to think through the process so they pick the best option.
You know, the information that you're giving us is great. I just want to offer, if anybody else has any questions that they really like to have answered, you know, one of the things that we're offering in this webinar is another perspective of how to prepare for school. You know, talk about when do you get college prep ready. You talked about, you know, preparing as a freshman and a sophomore. You know, me personally, I believe in preparing students when they're in the 6th grade. And the reason why college has to be the option, and they have to know that college is attainable. That's why we do this, and that's the reason why we open in our capital program, because we want people, this is an option, right? And how do they get to that option? Scholarships earlier this month, early last month, and we talked about financial literacy. We talked about the difference between two institutions, and this is another way that you prepare for that. So when you're thinking about, you know, where is that school that you want to go to, how do you get there? What that pathway is for you. You know, one of the things that for me that I like to, you know, the qualifications for you to graduate high school. Cases they just go through and they just start taking classes, but they don't talk to the guidance counselors. I found out that in my the students I mentored in their senior year, they really only need being, and they had to go through 2 semesters because that's the only time that those classes were offered. So what we talked to them about was the opportunity to go to a community college at that point so that they could actually take those classes. And when they were in high school and going to the community college, those were already covered. So it's about looking at those opportunities as well, right? And so going to a community college would not be a bad point to start out if they had the opportunity to do it, you know, for a period of time. So, you know, looking at this and preparing for, you know, going to the bigger level colleges and things of that nature, you know, just think about that. So,
you know, and I want to add to that too. Brother Jackson, that's right on target. I tell people that if you can't, thank you. Hold on one second.
So once again,
I was
if you guys have any questions.
Yeah. So what I was going to say about community college, so if you don't know what you want to major in, what problems you want to solve, and you don't have a full scholarship, go to community college, because a four-year university that's going to cost you thousands and thousands of dollars, and you don't know what you want to major in, and you got to pay, versus going to community college, taking your high school courses, transferring those over, getting your associate degree, and then transferring into a four-year school. So that's very, very important. And you do not have a full ride. Go to a community college. Because why would you pay to go to a school where you're just going to be hanging out until you figure out what you want to do? If you have a full ride, go to that school. So I agree with you, brother. And by the way, you don't all have to go to four-year schools. You can go to community college, especially if you want to be in the technical field, the technical world. There are ways to go to community college and get the certificates and the degrees that give you what you need to start working in that field immediately.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that we talked about when we had our webinar about 2 versus 4-year colleges is about going to state, state schools in which you live in, and finding that what you did, Dr. Smith, is you went to multiple universities, and then going to those multiple universities, you found where you really wanted to be. So that's one of those great things. So, and if you don't really,
I went to Xavier University because they gave me a full scholarship. Otherwise, I would have been at Mississippi State, Louisiana State, or one of the state schools because they gave me a full ride as well. And Xavier was 3 times as much as a state school, but since they gave me a full ride and I knew what I wanted to major in, I'm like, okay, let's do this.
And that's the very important thing. And you have to think about the school that you want. What's the reputation of that school? Look at Mississippi State is a great school to go to. Got a great reputation. But you have to determine, is it going to be the environment that you're going to be comfortable in too?
Correct.
So you have to think about that comfortability. When you think about, what was the other reason why you chose to go to Xavier?
Well, my primary reason for going to Xavier is I growing up in Mississippi, part of New Orleans, but my school was 75% white. I was tied and connected to the white world. I was very, very smart in high school. So I was all in the upper classes, which meant I had less black people in there. And I went to Xavier. I went to Mississippi State. I went to Jackson State. I went to USM, Ole Miss. I went to Connecticut. I went to Michigan. And I felt we're going to be a challenge. But once I got to Xavier, and I realized these are all black people, and they're all achieving at a high level, I want to be a part of that. I want to see how that works. So that's why I chose Xavier. Realistically, is because I was ready for a different experience. Now, some of my friends, same situation, still went to Mississippi State, went to LSU, because they didn't need that change of experience. But for me, it was a welcomed experience.
So it's great to hear. And, I tell people we're the original Wakanda school. So, if people don't know about the XU mark, that Wakanda for life.
That's it, baby. Come on, XU rocks the house. We know that.
Oh, all day, every day. But being Northeast and choosing to go to Xavier, I tell them to look at when they go to a school. You have to be comfortable in your own skin, but you have to be comfortable where you are. So, when we talk about preparing for college, I always say that you need to visit a school. Xavier was a school that I didn't visit it. It was recommended to me, but I was home. One of the things that I tell people that about Xavier is I don't care what year somebody graduated from Xavier, your family for life. And I went to and tell them to hear you graduate, and people are like, "What's up, fam?" And they treat you like family, like as if they know your life because of a shared experience. So when you're picking a college, pick some place that you want to have that great experience of being that you know you're going to be with, right? You know you're going to be there for 4 years minimum. You know, one of the things I tell you is I miss being home, right? I always said, right, I'm from New York. This is my second city. And you have to have that passion when you go to a school. If you leave that school and you have no affinity to that school when you walked out, I don't know what to tell you because I don't know if your experience was right.
And I'll give you her undergrad was at University of Georgia. Her first master's at Georgia State, then Binghamton, and then Hollins University. University of Georgia was playing for the state finals, the College World Series, the college football national championship game. She could care less. She doesn't go to the reunion. She doesn't really hang out with them. She talks to some of the people that she was close to, but she doesn't have that same connection. Whereas when Xavier plays anywhere near Dallas, I go to the games. But so you're right. You want to have that connection. You got to get to campus, do a virtual tour. But ultimately, I didn't mean to be sidetracked. My nephew did something very impressive, and this is my Lion brother's son, so I call him my nephew, of course. He actually applied to 5 schools only, got accepted to all 5 schools. Then he went to tour the schools, and his mindset was, now that I know these schools that meet my profile, meet my characteristics, have the right majors, have the problems I'm trying to solve, now let me go look at the campus. And he was treated like a king on each one of those because he had already been accepted and they're really trying to get him to commit. I don't fully agree with that option, but it worked really well for him. I do believe you should see some of the schools so you can do a comparison. But you can apply to schools that you don't see. And then once you get accepted, you can still go see them. But like Brother Jack said, you do need to see the school before you go.
So I don't see any more questions. Unless you have some more advice, I'd like to see where we want to go from here.
My last advice is really, like Brother said, going to college starts in 6th grade. Preparing and making sure you do the right things early. 10th and 11th grade, and when you get to 12th, is when you now have to put all of that work into play. Get the recommendation letters, write your essays, prep for the test, understand what problems you're trying to solve, work your community, understand why you're going to be great for that school. That starts in 6th grade. Finalizing it is in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
Thank you very much for all of that great advice. I do want to thank everybody for joining the call this evening. We appreciate you joining. As always, we want to thank the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and the Kappa Foundation for sponsoring this evening's webinar. Once again, it was recorded, and we will be putting the recording out later this evening. We thank you again for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in our next webinar, which will be coming up in the future.